Hey.
Alan Steinfeld, welcome to In the Nod.
In the Nod.
That is the name of the podcast.
The Nod, N-O-D.
It's N-A-A-D. Do you know what that is?
I do not know what that is.
The Nod is the cosmic vibration.
Really? Is that
Yes.
a Kundalini thing?
It's a yogic term, and it does also apply to Kundalini. That is correct.
So we're in the cosmic vibration.
We are in the cosmic vibration, and
And
I feel like
that's-
there's no one I'd rather be here than with you.
In the cosmic vibration.
Yes.
Okay.
Making contact, here we go. As well as one of the world leaders in ufology.
Well, I've been studying it for 30 years, and I'm obsessed with it, and I know as much as anyone about it because no one really knows what's going on. That's what makes this field so exciting. Not the government, not the politicians, not the media, not the experiencers. Everyone has a little fragment of this bigger truth. And that's why this book, Making Contact, is told from 12 different points of view. I have got the best people in the field to write a chapter, and I wrote a chapter about my experiences. But people I really honor and respect who've devoted their life to this. This is a lifetime study because it is the biggest mystery happening on the planet.
So, Alan, I have a
Yes.
question for you. I know you say it's not just about the government, but for those of us who don't really know the lay of the land, is there anything that you should tell us about the relationship between the U.S. government or any government and ufology, just to start us off?
That's a good point. That is a good place to start because I think it's all about the government. It's not about aliens. I mean, who cares if there's aliens here? What's the big deal?
I do a little, but it's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. It's a little scary for some people, and it's fascinating because they present a whole new possibility about life, about technology, biology, everything that would help save our planet. But the government, whoever they are, doesn't want us to know this. First, the government, when you say the government, it's not one thing. It's not like the people in Congress. Congress doesn't know about this. If you want to get conspiratorial,
I do.
You
Let's
do.
go
Good.
for it.
Well, my thing is the Pentagon, the military has been keeping this from the American people since 1947. You know what happened in 1947, right? The Roswell crash.
Roswell in New Mexico.
In New Mexico. A week before Roswell, there's a guy named Kenneth Arnold who was flying a private plane over Mount Rainier and saw these saucer-type craft skipping along in the air. 9 silver craft. He said they're flying like saucers. And that term, flying saucer, began a week before Roswell. June 24th, 1947, Kenneth Arnold lands and says to the reporters, I just saw these 9 saucer-shaped things, and they coined the term flying saucer. A week later in Roswell, something crashes in the desert there. And that is what breaks the news. Flying saucer crashes at ranch in Roswell, New Mexico. The following day, the newspapers retracted that and said, no, it was a mistake. It was a weather balloon. There's nothing to see here. Move on, folks. But the conspiracy and the cover-up started then. Somebody didn't want us to know that there really are beings from outer space. And so the Air Force started a campaign to ridicule anyone who said they had an experience and to just make it a subject no one in the media wanted to touch. It started the giggle factor. If you mention UFOs or you've had an experience, you would immediately be ridiculed because that was on the agenda to keep it private and inside the government wheelhouse in a sense. So, and why they're doing that? Why is government? First of all, they want the technology. They want it up and up hand on whatever the adversaries are doing. So there have been crash retrievals, starting with Roswell, CR, crash retrievals, where they recovered craft. Now, according to Colonel Gregory Corso, who wrote the book Day After Roswell, the microprocessor chip and lasers and all that came out of reverse engineering from the Roswell crash. And so if something crashes and the government picks us up, or the military, whatever comes out of that should belong to the American people. They're using American taxpayers to pay the military. But I think what happened, and no one's really proved this except Lou Elizondo, not prove it, but he verified, it's been sold to private industry. So the military gets these crash retrievals, they give it to private industry, and I think
I mean, the artifacts, whatever.
the artifacts
right.
and the technology, and they say, you figure it out. Because if it's in the government hands, it has to go through like congressional hearings. And so someone in the military, I'm not making this up, but I'm hypothesizing this is why it's been kept secret. So someone in the military gives it to the private industry develops the technology, and I think the military gets a kickback for that, a monetary kickback, and they don't want to share that with the American people, and that belongs to the American people. Whatever they find that's collected by the military. So is that enough of a conspiracy for you?
Yeah, but you think the technology is replicable? You think we're advanced enough to replicate that kind of technology?
I think some of the technology has been. There's some like warp drive, all that thing has yet to be figured out. Anti-gravity, but some of the basic technologies, the microchip, some of these laser technologies have been used, supposedly, I mean, I'm not a scientist, to be moved into private industry or industry that then is sold back to the public. So that's a good question. If you look at Bob Lazar, do you know who Bob Lazar is?
I do.
He was one of the first to come out and say, yes, they're working on, they understood some of this technology. And I think some of these stealth fighters and some of the way advanced stuff is coming from UFO retrievals. So that's the cover up. I mean, someone's making money from private industry on this. But that's a good question. Are we advanced enough to understand this?
Well, I think in your book, you asked the question, or you posed the point, are we an outsourced colonization, right? You say that. Like, are we, because obviously for us, we're the center of the universe, right? We think we're all that there is. But are we just an outpost?
Well, it goes back to the whole idea of Kundalini Yoga, which has to do with consciousness. So I think who we are as human beings are made of something beyond the body, right? Don't you learn that?
Yeah, we're star children.
Right, but we're not we have a body, we have these avatars, these vehicles, but what consciousness is being received. The body is a receptacle of consciousness. So, and I think consciousness is non-local. I think, so who we are essentially is the same as what these beings are as well.
So there's a local transmitter.
Yes.
And we're all recipients of that local transmitter.
The local transmitter is your brain, like a radio picks up the signal, but it doesn't.
It's not the universe. I'm saying, is a local transmitter something in the universe?
What do you mean by local transmitter?
Like, is there like a consciousness that affects us all, and it just radiates into everything, whether you're extraterrestrial, human being?
I think so. And we each have our own little window, makes us individual on that consciousness that radiates through all things.
Right. And that's called the personality.
Yes, it's the personality,
That's
your
the
individual
personality.
soul expression.
Right.
And so, but that's not different from what these ETs are. They may have a different way of understanding reality because their personality or their mind developed in different ways. But in essence, they are the same as us.
Now, do you have any personal experiences with these ETs, or can you give us a story that will be compelling enough to draw us in?
I mean, it's not as flashy as other people's stories, but I was driving cross country. It's in the book here. It's in Making Contact. 1987, driving cross country from the West Coast to the East Coast. We just came from the Oregon Country Fair, me and my girlfriend, who I'd met in Sedona. We just started to drive around the country. So, you know what 1987 was? It was the year of the harmonic convergence. Were you around for that harmonic convergence?
I don't believe so.
It was the first kind of spiritual holiday. It was before the internet. People were gathering around the country at sacred spots and in Sedona and Mount Shasta.
It's like vortexes.
Yes, but it was a particular day. It was supposed to be the end of the Mayan calendar, not the 2012 day. But it was the end of a certain cycle in the Mayan calendar. August 16th and 17th, 1987 was a time where the new age was born, essentially. And people gathered around the world at all these sacred spots. And I was looking for a place to gather. So I was driving from New York to Sedona and Santa Fe and all these great places. Met this great woman, and we traveled together. And as we were coming back to the East Coast along Interstate 80, from the West Coast. We drove for a long time. We just parked on the side of the road, like we pulled off the interstate down a little highway, and we just passed out. Usually we fool around, roll around, doing all that stuff, but we're just really tired, and we're in this kind of strange place. And we woke up in the same position we went to bed in. We just laying there, and we just like, it was like suspended animation. And it felt really creepy. And we just had to get out of there. But then the next day, I found a little 4-prong puncture mark on the back of my leg, like a little implant or something. I don't know what it was. But I eventually got back to New York, and I talked to some people gathered with this thing called the Intruders Foundation, started by Bud Hopkins. You know who Bud Hopkins is?
I don't.
He was the first big investigator into alien abductions. So he looked at a lot of marks on people's bodies because that's one piece of evidence. So someone in his group said, yeah. And I showed him the 4-prong puncture mark. He said, yeah, that's an abduction mark. Totally didn't remember anything, but I became obsessed with the phenomenon. That's how I was able to write this book. I spent the last, 30 years, 40 years, whatever, going to every conference, getting every book, trying to find out as much as possible who did this. Why do they want our genetics? Why are they here in general? So, I have a whole theory about that we can talk about, but because
the Greys are known for taking, right?
And you know why the Greys are taking genetics?
No.
You don't know what? Because they reached the end of their evolutionary cycle. They bred emotion out of their consciousness. So they became pure intellect. And they reached a dead end. You do not get to God if you are pure intellect.
Right, you need to have the heart.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So that heart open. So they need to know what it is in us that creates emotion.
They needed to integrate that back into their
DNA.
And emotion is in the DNA. When people have liver transplants or lung transplants, they take on the personality of the...
it's got memory. It has
memory
connected to it.
So our DNA, when it's interspliced with the Grey's DNA to create these hybrid beings, has our emotional history in it. So they're able to feel again by creating this hybrid race of human and Greys. And so they're abducting people they sort of stopped that, I think. I think they reached the end of that experiment. But the cattle mutilations are part of that in my theory, where they're incubating these growing fetuses in huge vats of blood and soft tissue, which is what's taken from these cows. And they're growing because, these hybrid beings are not birthed, they're like incubated and grown with their technology.
It's just so interesting because the aliens that we know as human beings are doing everything we can not to feel. With this, we're all medicated. We're also out of our minds. We're trying to hide from emotion.
Well... That's what ended up in one timeline as
with the Greys.
Exactly.
They couldn't handle it. It becomes too much. You get overwhelmed, and so boom.
But you know what? We are here to feel. That is what makes us human beings.
Listen, this is, as Ram Dass said, this incarnation is our curriculum.
Exactly. And it's about drama and interaction and feeling and loving. And
navigating through it.
And expressing those feelings. Art is all about the expression of emotion. We have the Greys, they don't really have that sense of what it is to see art or hear a song and feel something. So they knew, this is my theory and some others, that was missing from their evolution. They got rid of that and they, took a wrong turn there. So they had to come back and gain what you're saying now people want to get rid of, but I'm saying with our sort of subculture here, we're here to feel.
No question. The whole experience is about learning how to navigate feelings but also learning how not to attach to them.
Well, that's drama. I say there's a difference between emotionality, which is drama, and feelings. We're here to feel every minute. Your Akashic record is picking up every moment in your lives of feeling. Like this moment's a feeling. It may not be a fantastic feeling, but it's registered as a feeling sensation. So this is what our lives are made out of, feelings. And when you get a big burst, like a drama or something, it's like practice is to not get so caught up and not detach, but let the emotion go through you without attaching to it.
And that's why we have yogic technologies, breath
Exactly.
work and mantra and frequency. I do a lot of work with frequency.
What does that mean, frequency?
Frequency, sound, vibration. That's why the name of the podcast is In the Nod.
Just find frequency to the audience.
Well, I think there are different ways of defining frequency. First of all, frequency, vibration, and color and light are all part of the same thing. And we are learning more and more as science diverges with spirituality that frequency and vibration is actually a healing power.
I totally
Right?
agree.
It is actually healing. So if our chakras are aligned, for example, each chakra vibrates at its own frequency.
Yes.
And they have to be resonating at that particular frequency in order to be aligned, and in order for us to be calm or to have presence of mind, not be depressed. Even inflammation can be cured by frequency.
I agree. There's a woman coming to the panel who I think cured her infertility with a sound bowl frequency.
I'm telling you, people don't look, even in the Bible, in the beginning there was word,
right,
sound.
And actually, Pythagoras said, you vibrate a string here, a string across the room will vibrate if it's in resonance.
And now, I don't know if you've been read up on this, quantum entanglement.
Yes, I love quantum entanglement.
Oh, my God. Talk about out of this world.
That is part of the ET technology. They use quantum entanglement to travel beyond time and space. They're not filling up their gas tank to get here.
Telepathically.
Telepathic, but projecting properties that are faster than light. So they can come here and move there because the properties of who they are projected somehow through portals of energy. And also because particles are entangled, you do something here, and something over there is affected. So that's a form, when we're more sophisticated, we'll understand that's how we can travel. By being entangled and then picking up on a property over here, and we move faster than light.
It's already been done with particles. They haven't done it with entire human beings, but transportation has been done. Teleportation.
Yes, that's Cal Putoff, who's one of the founders of this, who's one of the big shots in the UFO remote viewing field, told me personally, yes, we can teleport properties. And when you teleport a property of something, you actually are teleporting a thing, because what's an atom? It's not like a thing. A personality. It's a property that manifests in time space. So yes, you're right. We do have that. We're going to be doing that, I think, with human beings. And I don't know if I want to be the first one to do that, but
God knows where you end up. Isn't it arrogant to assume that we're the only ones that exist?
Not only that. Science saying we live in a dead universe. You think this, or is the universe full of life? I say in my book, life is an emergent property. It means it emerges out of nowhere in creation, around every cosmos, every dimension. We've been led to believe life is an accident. So the whole thing that you just asked, of course we're not, because consciousness itself is non-local. That's how we could communicate with these ETs. That's what happens to experiences. There's a telepathic thought from these beings into our minds, and we're told to get up or do this or think that. I mean, it's a little bit of manipulation, but I don't know. It's the jury's out on whether they're good or bad.
But did you ever hear this comment that Elon Musk, who I would think would be open to this,
right?
But he does not believe in UFOs.
I know.
And he says, I have 6,000 satellites, out there, and we've never, come into a near collision. And I just thought that was a very unusual comment for someone who I think is so scientifically and sci-fi minded. You'd think of all people.
But he's not really. He's more corporate. He's more like get the job done. He's more efficient. I mean, I think he's a genius in whatever he's done, Starlink, but...
You think he's more of a corporate guy?
He's a little close-minded. He only knows what he knows, and if he doesn't know, it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Right? He told the
I can't with him.
Yeah.
I just can't with him.
right. He said, the whole Nimitz incident that happened off the coast of San Diego.
Yes.
And these pilots are seeing this thing called the Tic
Yes.
Tac with their eyes. He comes on some television news show. He says, no, those are artifacts of the radar. And these are pilots, trained pilots who saw these objects, and he's saying they're artifacts because in his mind, that's the only way he can explain it.
He reminds me of a creationist. I mean,
Right.
he's so, in a weird way, he's so unsophisticated.
Right. That's why, who was that famous scientist who said science progresses one funeral at a time? Scientists are attached to their ideas of how the world is. And if you come along with a new theory, they just won't accept it.
They're stuck in the same pattern as doctors and politicians, and they
Exactly.
can't get out.
Yes. Terence McKenna said, Terence.
Of course.
He says, culture is not your friend because it'll make you think just like everyone else. So Elon Musk, he's a forward-thinking person, but he still is very limited by his own belief system. So one of my favorite books is by Thomas Kuhn, who wrote The Theories of Scientific Revolution, where he named the paradigm. And so these people are in an old paradigm, and me and you and maybe everyone listening are thinking about something new, something unknown. So getting back to the questions, good or bad, I think we have more to be afraid of from human beings than we do aliens.
I just don't understand how it got to the point. Now, maybe it's the Department of Defense. Maybe this is fear tactic, right? Because you know how they operate.
It is a fear tactic.
It must be, because there's absolutely no reason to give them our characteristics, right? That they just assume they're like us because it just goes to show you where their minds are, right?
Exactly.
Everything is scary.
All they care about is weapons and enemies, and that's why they're having bad experiences with some of these orbs, while other people have beautiful experiences, because the phenomena reflects your state of mind. So if you're just interested in weapons, well, maybe you're going to manifest that in your own life, right?
Also, if you tell the world how scary they are, where are we going to put our money?
Right.
Protecting ourselves from these dangerous aliens.
Right. So that's why they call it the Advanced Threat Identification Program. That was one of the funding programs.
Didn't they change the name of that program?
They did change it. They did. And it's now, there's all these name changes, but getting back to the idea of the unknown, people project their fears onto the unknown. And the unknown is not to be feared. It's just the known projected. The unknown is full of wonder, possibility, and infinite potential. That's the unknown. That's what we have to look forward to. And that's what these ETs, whoever they are here to bring us, something we have yet to know. We're about to go into the world of wonder and possibility and meet these beings on a higher level. They're not here to invade the earth or take over. I mean, why would they want to do that?
If they wanted to, they would have.
Exactly. 50 or 60 or 100 years ago, and they haven't. And they also are telling us to stop our nuclear weapon development. These ships are appearing over nuclear weapon sites.
Didn't they de-weaponize some
Yes, they
or
did.
in a silo or something?
In
happened?
Maelstrom Air Force Base, 1967, Robert Salas was there. I know him. He said, yep, he watched the nuclear codes being turned off, and he freaked out. He's in charge of these nuclear warheads, and this has happened in Russia. Sometimes they're turned on, sometimes they're turned off. Actually, Roswell was where the Army Air Force, there was no Air Force, the Army bombers who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were based in Roswell, New Mexico. So there's a book called UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings, who says they don't want they don't want us having the nuclear energy. My theory is okay, the bombs went off, and I don't know why they didn't stop the bombs, but we tear holes in time, space. It's like there's something coming into their reality because they're not really in our time-space matrix, but it's related. It's a bubble. So when we blast a nuclear explosion, it's rips a hole in that bubble, and they're very disturbed. So, they came here to check out what's happening. It's the teenagers have the car keys. We better check in on them because they might do something stupid. And we have, so I think that's another reason to think that maybe they're not here to invade. Maybe they're here to help us get out of the mess we've created and move our whole cultural platform to another friendlier, John Lennon, imagine level, imagine all the world living for today, no countries, no religion. That's where I think we're headed to.
Yeah, like some sort of universal upgrade in our consciousness.
Right, where love is the real currency of exchange. That's the thing. There was a guy, Jacob Barber. Have you seen that? He's a whistleblower. He's a former helicopter.
I know who he is.
And he says he felt this overwhelming love when he went to pick up one of these craft, and his life changed.
Now, let me ask you, in terms of these ETs, are you familiar, I'm assuming you are, with the different types?
Yeah, people get caught up in Arcturians and Syrians and Pleiadians. That's way down the line. First, let's just see who's here. Let's get a body to be brought out, because they do have bodies, the government. They have,
Well, they say the draconians are here, right? And
Well,
they're the ones that are under the ground as well that are
they're
here?
all here, but the government has bodies that they could very well say, and David Grush, who was an intelligence officer, he says, yes, we have bodies, and they do look like grays, the ones that the government has. So government, where the grays are from. This goes back to Betty and Barney Hill.
I remember reading it, but I don't.
Zeta Reticuli.
Okay.
Which is like 8 light years away. But obviously, they're not filling up their gas tanks to get here. There's a technology that, again, is being kept from us by the military because they are in bed with the oil companies, fossil fuel companies. Imagine if everyone had a little thing in their house that ran all their electrical needs, or their car. It would... These fossil fuel companies, if they are fossil fuel, who knows, would lose trillions. They'd be out of business. But that's where we're headed. We're headed to self-sufficiency because that's part of our thriving nature.
Why do you think so few people believe? I mean, to me, it seems so obvious. Right. And why are we considered conspiracy theorists?
Right. That's part of the government conspiracy to make us look ridiculous. But now the media's catching on.
Well, that New York Times article when was it, 2017 or 19?
December 16th, 2017. Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal, Helena Cooper. That broke it open, and no longer are we being laughed at. So why are people not interested? I mean, I have friends.
Why?
My family thinks I'm a little out there because they don't think it's as important as we think it is. It is a game changer. It's a game changer for everything we know: history, technology, biology, medicine, everything. And people are very stuck in their lives, very stuck in their very conditioned way of thinking. It's too big to think that there's something more, because people are identified with their belief system. So if you grow up and thinking this is not possible, you have to fit that in there unless you've had a sighting yourself. So you've had a sighting maybe, and you say, oh, well, maybe that's possible. But people are trapped in this little box. There's a great quote by William Blake that humans look through a small chink in a fence because that's their conditioning. And when you open up the doors of perception, which is what we're doing here on this podcast, the world becomes infinite.
How do we bring the outside world in?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking that. Well, there's something called the telepathy tapes. Have you heard about that?
I have.
That's another game changer. These autistic children who are non-speaking.
I think it was the number one podcast. I think it beat Joe Rogan.
It did, and it's worth this 10 episodes, and it's so well done, and it's a real thing that these kids, without any other means of speaking, are able to tap into the infinite field. We have these personalities that are taught to us, and we're grown up to think a certain way, and this is what you like, this is what you don't like. I think these autistic children are not functioning on that level. They're much more tapped into the quantum field. Joe Dispenza's work.
Of course.
Well, that's where these kids with non-speakers and probably more have so much more consciousness available to them that they are telepathic. They read minds and they sit on the hill.
I mean, apparently their communication with their mothers, right? Is that...
Yes, and with each other. There's, I think, episode 4, Kai, who's put that podcast together, talks about the hill, where all these telepathic autistic children go in their consciousness to converse with each other non-locally. So they may have a different neurostructure than us, but we are capable of being non-local as well.
Or they may have developed that neurostructure because, the brain, the plasticity of the brain.
Or
right?
they may have been born that way as a new species for the human being.
In which case you don't think it's an illness.
Well, it seems not to be. It seems, it's an evolution possibly.
That's such a great
And
way
maybe it's ET related. Maybe the ETs are showing us that there's more conscious. Yes, they're not functional in the way that we think functionality works. And that, I don't know if it's an illness, but I think we are, with these telepathy tapes and learning who these children really are, need to think about consciousness and who we really are in a different way. We're infinite. You know that, right?
I believe in incarnation.
Of course. We're like, the body's a radio receiver, right? It's receiving the energy of our soul frequency.
Correct.
But if the radio breaks, it doesn't mean the broadcast has stopped.
No, because the radio does break.
And sometimes you pick up a new radio and get the same frequency. That's the incarnation. That's the body is the radio. It's the hardware. But it's not the signal.
You must believe in a magnetic field because
Of
that's
course.
right. You must believe in that.
Well,
and that's real. I think that's measurable. I think Joe Dispenza
Yes.
says that is measurable. I do not want to misquote Joe Dispenza.
No, I know Joe. We went to the same mystery school together. We went
Same what?
Mystery school, the Ramtha School of, Ramtha, the channel Ramtha. That's where I met Joe 30 years ago. He was speaking, he started his speaking engagements there at the
Is this before his accident or after?
when was his accident?
I
think
don't know,
it was
but I thought that
before.
was what set him on a spiritual journey.
Yeah, he set him on a spiritual journey, and then he went to the Ramtha School of Enlightenment in Washington State, channeled by J.Z. Knight. That was in the 80s. I met
Is
him.
it still around?
It's still around. I mean, we've sort of all, I feel like we've kind of graduated.
Got it.
My whole understanding of incarnation and spirituality came from that place, and sort of where Joe came from that foundation. Of course, he's gone on and done his own things, but the whole thing about creating your day that he made him in the the Bleep movie that's really launched Joe
right.
Dispenza, that was all from Ramtha. To create your day. You wake up in the morning and you create your day or create your year, and you bring it into manifestation. You ask the universe to show you signs that there's something more. And you can do that every day. Joe, that was the foundational work of Joe. But of course, his training and what he's done with science and technology is way beyond those days. And
He's also made it palatable for
yes,
the non-believer.
It's very important what Joe is doing.
Yes, you take something that's so ethereal and ephemeric, and you make it palatable for somebody who would normally say, this is crap.
Right, and he's showing you how it's palatable because your mind creates reality, and this is how he cured himself. His inner reality was stronger than what the world was saying. If you trust your inner reality and bring it into this feeling sense inside you, it manifests outside you. That's
That's all quantum.
It's all quantum.
Throwing it out there in the quantum.
Yes. So what do you want to manifest in your life? You have kind of a nice place here, but what?
Oh God, I need more than a house.
What do you need?
I think like all of us, I'm looking for a very strong sense of self.
Don't you have?
I do.
What
But
would
there's
be a sign?
but there's also an insecurity in that, right?
Yeah,
there's a fear of lack of success.
I know, but
Fear of not being loved.
But where's that come from? That's something that is no longer relevant in your life, as I feel. I don't know you, but
We all have holes in our heart, right?
I
And
know.
we're trying to fill them. So I would say, let's say I came to this planet and the hole was empty. I'd say it's 3/4 full, but I'm not.
What
ever
would take
complete.
you to fill it right now?
Oh, a really hot, great lover.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Can we manifest that?
Well, I'm here.
Be here now.
I'm be here now.
Ram Dass, be here
Well,
now.
I don't know you, but anyway, yes. So you're looking to be fulfilled, but just for yourself.
Feeling that love hole, which I
Right.
think so many of us can't fill. And it's interesting. I had a conversation about it yesterday. Would that fill the hole?
Probably not. I mean, what would fill the hole for you? I would say it's a self-love. I mean, yes, it's great to have a partner and someone who you deeply connect with and do all that with. And the hole has to be filled somehow. And I had to learn this by our own.
Don't want to do it though. I know it's self-love.
You can do it in this moment. You can fill it with the great love that you are.
By the way, it's interesting that you just say that because, everything is about being in the moment. That's the rush. That's the icing on the cake. Like right now I'm in the moment.
Thank you.
And while you're in the moment, one's never unhappy in the moment.
That's right. And so that's all there is.
The hole is filled right now.
Thank you.
The hole is filled.
It's filled for me.
Right.
Thank you.
And as long as we stay in the moment, we're not searching for something outside of ourselves.
So what takes you out of the moment? Don't go there, but what takes
the
you?
mind.
And what is the mind? It's the old story of the mind,
It's
right?
the disconnection of heart and mind, right? Heart and
that's
head.
an old story. Because when you're in the moment, I see the light coming out of your eyes. That's how you know someone's in the moment. I do that exercise in my workshops where I say, look at someone and look at them until, let me see. Yeah, you smile and the light comes out of your eyes because the thought stops. There, you just did it there. That's when you did it. The thought stops and the light comes out of the eyes and then they're in the moment. And then their divinity shines through them. See that you're yearning for that presence. And you have it. I don't think you even realize what you actually have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Like, it's always nice to be reminded, right? We always like the reassurance of somebody that we think is smarter or has gotten farther. And I'm not talking monetarily farther. I'm talking spiritually farther. Someone who's got that growth that we yearn for, and you can see it.
Right. But you're there.
Yeah.
You're there. There's no one who is further than you because when you're present. I mean, there's great teachers, right? Like where I met Guru Jagat at Paul Lowe's and some other friends we have. And
she was only 19 and you knew that she had it in her.
I totally knew this woman stood up and would express herself in the most amazing ways.
The way she articulated her expression was unbelievable.
Right. And
I've yet to meet anyone or have known anyone to do it.
Exactly.
With her quality, yeah.
Her quality and her love and her laughter, and that's what I miss about her.
And her intense knowledge around everything. Prolific learner.
Student
of life.
She was very smart. She was.
Brilliant.
And, just a regular person. You go out and you have a good laugh, and she was always like that. I'd come out to LA once a year and I'd stay with her and, wherever she was, and we'd just laugh and cry together all the time. In one moment there, we'd say something, we'd just tap in together. She was really a soul sister on that level. Yeah, that deep level.
Yes, she was someone I admired. Listen, you talk about extraterrestrials. Her presence was like a planet. I mean, the gravitational force, she was just this massive entity.
I know. She was doing something in New York at this place on this venue, and she called me up on stage to sit with her and kind of chat and I say to her, well, you've become like Elvis. We just, because she was like larger than life.
Larger than life.
I know.
And so comfortable in that role.
Such a manipulation to put Yogi Bhajan's manipulation right next to Guru Jagat and say it was the same thing. That was not fair. It was very manipulative.
I agree with you. So it's just, it's more propaganda. It's envious. It's jealousy.
It's also where humans are at, some people, because they don't see the good, the love, the possibility that Guru Jagat had presented to these people.
I don't think anyone anywhere in that movie talked about all the help she gave.
Right.
And all the women who she actually saved. And I use that word very accurately.
Yeah, Katie, right. She was Athena, actually, when I actually met her first time.
Yeah, I've changed my names a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, it's an identity crisis. I was Galaxy for a while.
I like Galaxy.
Of course you do.
I'm from that galaxy.
Right. I was Galaxy for a while, and I was Sansari, which was my Kundalini spiritual name.
That's a
for
good
a
name.
while.
I like. Will you call yourself Sansari? You don't have
You
to.
know, I'm starting a business. It's a little hard to change your name
Sansari.
30 times.
Right,
you
right,
know,
right. What business will you start?
I'm starting a wearable tech company.
Oh, I like that. Wearable tech. That's good. You're starting it now?
It's all about frequencies
It is.
and chakra
We
alignments.
should get you a booth at the next Conscious Life Expo.
You'll be
But I will
gone.
be talking about remote viewing, which is another subject we could talk about at some point.
Would love that.
You are infinite, and you can understand that, and you know everything, past, present, and future, beyond time and space.
It's interesting. I had an experience very similar to that.
Oh, really?
I
Tell
don't
me.
know that I could bring it on myself.
What happened?
So my body, my human body, sort of dissipated into all these different this matter.
Were you on?
I was.
Okay.
And I was somewhere in space, in time and space, with no time. And I was having multiple conversations with everyone who had ever meant anything to me in my life simultaneously. And I was keenly aware of what was going on in each conversation simultaneously. And there were hundreds of them.
Right.
And I remember how powerful that was and believing it.
Well, believe it because it's true. You
Yeah.
transcended the ego. You became the infinite mind, and you're able. And that's where people who go to the other side are able to do that. But we can do it as this dimensional plane rises to that frequency. We can start to do that incarnate, in body.
I'm assuming that's what soul existence is, right?
That is soul
Right,
existence.
soul
That's where
existence.
beings are after they
Right.
pass this plane. But I
Right.
think what's happening is that we'll be able to do it now, here, in this
Wow.
frequency, that dimension. We're learning to access those non-local realms because they're right here, right now. Everything you've ever done, all those people, you can talk to them right now. We are infinite, and you experience that. So that was a marker for you to return to in your own interior consciousness.
Absolutely. This has been such a treat. Oh my God, I could talk to you for hours.
Well, you're there. You're there. Whatever judgment you may have about yourself for whatever reason, it's not true.
You have no idea what a pleasure this was
I-
and how much I love the way your mind works and how inspired I am by you.
Thank you. That's so nice.
I have a question. How do people find you, connect with you,
Thank you.
look you up? What would they do?
Well, my brand name is New Realities. So you can look me up on YouTube, youtube.com/New Realities. I have a great channel that I have lots of interviews with everyone in the consciousness field, like Deepak Chopra. Every time he has a new book out, he calls me and said, "Would you want to interview me for my book?" And then I finally had a book out. I said, "Hey, Deepak, you owe me one." So he did. And he did. He was really kind. He's a very...
So YouTube is your big platform.
YouTube is
Great.
where I put most of my energy.
Great.
But then, Facebook, Instagram, my name, Alan Steinfeld.
That's a perfect place to end.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you. What a pleasure.